Greetings and salutations, and welcome back, friends, and happy Valentine's Day. I hope all of you, within the sound of my voice, got to spend some time with that special someone that you love in your life. I sure did. A wonderful evening with my always Valentine, or Valentine for the last, I don't know, 25 years, my lovely wife, Sharon, and my two boys who got their mother some flowers. It was a whole mission. And with that mission now being accomplished, I turned my attention towards work and things important to me to discuss. And nothing in the past several weeks to me has been more important to discuss than tonight's subject. We're going to be talking about the Ohio train derailment. And this is a very disturbing story. And it became more disturbing to me as I spent the last 2 full days on the telephone. I was commenting to our producer, Spooky, earlier. I have never seen quite this level of lack of answers to questions given to officials, either local officials, government officials, EPA officials. And just to be clear, I made a log and I checked it because I had mentioned that I made like 25 phone calls, but it turns out that I made 42 phone calls between Monday during business hours and today, Tuesday, during business hours. And I called many, many different people. I called the federal EPA. I called the local town of East Palestine to try to talk to officials there, including the mayor's office, the local police, the local fire chief. I called Pete Buttigieg's office. He is, after all, the Secretary of Transportation. This would certainly fall within his realm of responsibility. I called the EPA. I got no one would talk to me. Not a single individual would talk to me. And ordinarily, I try not to let things get personal to me. And I certainly have learned that it's not a good idea to start saying things like, I'm a taxpayer. You have to answer my questions, or this is your job. But I found myself becoming increasingly frustrated with essentially speaking to assistants or secretaries or, people who all told me that these officials I was trying to get on the record comments from would return the calls to me with some answers. So after 42 phone calls, 2 days of making phone calls and waiting by the phone. And by the way, now with technology, we can see it's not as if I missed someone's return call. No one called me back, not a single official who would be closely connected to this tragedy called me back. And, I'm left with just more questions than answers because, especially in the case of the EPA, the mayor's office, and all these people have a responsibility to answer very basic questions. And, oh, by the way, I also called Norfolk Southern and multiple calls into Norfolk Southern, who is the train company. And you may be familiar or unfamiliar with Norfolk Southern, but they are a shipping and freight company, a train company who ships things all over the country. And they have for years railed against any sort of regulation of their industry. And we're going to get into all of that. So this accident occurred on February 3rd, 2023 in East Palestine, Ohio, in the United States. A freight train that was carrying, and this is where the problems begin, vinyl chloride, derailed and exploded. And then in response, after trying to put the fire out for several days, and by the way, we really do have to discuss vinyl chloride. Just so that you get an idea of just how dangerous and important this situation is. So vinyl chloride, I did a great deal of research into vinyl chloride. And for those unaware, I do have sort of an amateur interest in chemistry, having spent my childhood almost blowing up the basement many times and getting in trouble with my parents. But I do have had a lifelong interest in chemistry as an amateur. I was not very familiar with this compound, but I knew that it was toxic. So vinyl chloride is a colorless gas that is widely used in the manufacture of plastic products. Although it is a valuable industrial chemical, it is also extremely highly toxic to all, I'm going to say that again, to all living organisms. This would include plants, animals, fish, and humans. This chemical is well known to have serious negative effects on the environment, especially in water sources like rivers, creeks, or lakes. The toxic effects of vinyl chloride on plants are well documented. When released into the environment, vinyl chloride can inhibit the growth and development of plants. I'm going to say that again. When released into the environment, this compound, vinyl chloride, can inhibit the growth and development of plants. The chemical can also lead to necrosis and the eventual death of plants. Even extremely tiny or small amounts of vinyl chloride can have significant impact on plant health, as it can cause tissue damage, stress, and growth abnormalities. Vinyl chloride is also known to have significant toxic effects on animals, including fish, birds, and all aquatic species. So in other words, anything that lives in the water, crawfish, salamanders, frogs, anything in the water can be affected very negatively by vinyl chloride. When released into rivers and creeks, it can rapidly spread and contaminate the surrounding water sources. Exposure to vinyl chloride can cause respiratory distress, liver damage, other health problems in animals, including leading to death. The impact of vinyl chloride on water sources is incredibly significant. As the chemical is released into water bodies, it can rapidly spread and contaminate wide areas. Once released, vinyl chloride is difficult to remove from water sources, as it can bind with organic matter and persist for long periods of time. This can lead to long-term environmental damage with a negative impact on the ecosystem and water quality. The toxic effects of vinyl chloride are not limited to the environment. Humans who are exposed to even extremely tiny amounts of vinyl chloride can experience a range of health problems, including respiratory issues, neurological problems, liver damage, and cancer. Prolonged exposure to vinyl chloride can have serious negative effects on human health and can lead to long-term health problems. So knowing this now about vinyl chloride, this is where this story gets crazy. Because 3 days after the initial train derailment, and by the way, one of my calls into Norfolk, this train company, I want to know how much of this vinyl chloride was the train carrying. Go try to find out how much vinyl chloride was being carried in this train that derailed and exploded. You can't. Now, there are some people who are, worked in the rail industry and know how many gallons each car can hold, how many cars this train may have held. So, but there's an estimated range. Since we can't get any answers from Norfolk, this train company, we have to resort to estimates. Now, depending on which news source or expert source that you go to, the estimates are that this train was carrying somewhere between, and this is where it gets crazy, because why can't we get a straight answer? We have to get a range like this. somewhere between 100,000 gallons to 1 million gallons. So we can't get an answer from Norfolk Southern when we called them and asked straight out. And by the way, I did, Norfolk Southern, and I've logged my calls to you and kept track of who I spoke to at your company. I always ask for a name and title, and I write it down. So, I call asking for a media representative or who deals with media questions. Got a girl on the phone who said she'd have to get back to me. She was unaware of an exact figure. So somewhere between 100,000 gallons of this and 1 million gallons. That is an awful lot of cancer-causing chemical. Now, just to give you an idea, the federal guidelines for exposure to this chemical is somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 part per million over 8 hours. So the amount that would fit on the head of a pin is more than you should be exposed to over 8 hours. And now we have a situation where a train derails. And by the way, we're going to get into the causal effects of this train derailment. A train derails carrying, we don't know because the company won't tell us. And by the way, shouldn't the company be required by law to tell us how much of this cancer-causing dangerous chemical this train that derailed was carrying? I think so. But somewhere between 100,000 gallons and 1 million gallons of this extremely dangerous cancer-causing chemical that is ridiculous, terrible, bad for the environment was released into the environment. But then the story gets even stranger because 3 days after the initial accident occurred, and again, the train derailed and the chemicals ignited, causing a huge fire. On February 6th, some 3 days after the initial accident, emergency crews conducted a controlled burn of the spill, which released hydrogen chloride and phosgene into the air. And for those unaware, hydrogen chloride and phosgene are equally dangerous, extremely cancer-causing, problematic chemicals to be released into the air. So I would like to know, I really want to know this. So I called the EPA and said, if a company was going to purposefully burn cancer-causing chemicals, wouldn't they need your approval to do that? And I want to know who made the decision leading to a controlled burn, and they literally exploded what was left of the fire. Literally exploded what was left of this fire. Amazing to me that this just seemed like a good idea to them. We're just going to allow between 100,000 and 1 million gallons of this extremely dangerous chemical to burn in the atmosphere, this vinyl chloride. And of course, this then, once released into the atmosphere, it becomes hydrochloric acid, which creates a noxious form of chemical acid rain, and certainly will spread the chemical all over the United States. And we have some information on that for you as well. So this is a huge problem here. So we're going to get into a quick, I lost that again. We want to welcome everyone within the sound of my voice. I'll check in with the live chat before we do this. Yeah, more accurate to call it a deliberate burn than a controlled burn, says Brandy Phillips. I agree. Phosgene is a chemical weapon. I'm not very familiar with chemical weapons, but you may indeed be correct. And you'll have to excuse me here. I don't know what's going on, but I've had issues with our with one of our cameras of late, but it'll be okay. All right, so we'll just switch to a different view then. Oh, wait, there it is. Just wasn't showing up. Okay, now I can breathe easy. Everything is working. The last thing I need, especially when I'm talking about a subject that I've had to research very diligently because I'm not an expert on these matters, is technical problems. So I found, so initially the train derails. Now what you need to know also is that this train carrying somewhere between 100,000 and 1 million gallons of a very extremely cancer-causing, extremely dangerous to the environment, extremely flammable, apparently, chemical. The train did not have the proper paperwork. It was not classified as high hazard or flammable cargo. So this train, with somewhere between 100,000 and 1 million gallons of this extremely dangerous chemical vinyl chloride, it was not classified as high hazard or flammable cargo. This is extremely shocking, and this was part of my question phase here. I was looking for answers from the EPA, from the Transportation Department. Why was this not classified as high hazard or flammable cargo? Maybe if it had been, more care would have been taken and this tragedy could have avoided. Yeah, so they called it a controlled burn of the spill. And then, so on February 6th, they controlled burned the rest of the spill, which released hydrogen chloride and phosgene into the air. As a result, residents within a 1 mile or 1.6 kilometer for those across the pond, so radius, they were evacuated. And an emergency response from agencies across 3 states was initiated. And one might ask themselves, if there is such a highly cancer-causing, environmentally destructive chemical that can cause all of these health side effects, and they're going to burn whatever's left of it, wouldn't they want to evacuate more than a 1 mile area around a burn of between 100,000 and 1 million gallons of this noxious chemical? And it should be known that Norfolk Southern has a long history of fighting regulations. And again, this train was not classified as high hazard or flammable cargo. It also should be noted that you may have heard about the rail workers striking recently. And Joe Biden forced them to go back to work. One of the things they wanted was greater safety regulations and more maintenance to the train system. It's also interesting to note, and I got to find my materials to share here, that the Trump administration is also partially responsible. This is from a few years back, but still very relevant. So I blame both sides of the aisle for this tragedy. Those of you who know me or have been a viewer for a while know that I am neither a Republican or a Democrat. I think that they are two sides of the same coin, and both sides are criminally corrupt. But let me see. Okay, so here is one causal factor. Trump rolls back train braking rule meant to keep oil tankers from exploding near communities. So Obama put in place a new rule that would require new brakes be put on the trains to reduce the risk of oil train derailments, causing explosions and spilling gas. It was reversed by Trump. But here's where it gets interesting. This regulation was reversed by Donald Trump just 1 month. Trump did this rollback. This train braking rule would have cost the rail industry millions of dollars, because the railroad trains are using braking systems, get this, from the 1870s or 60s, right? And so Obama and his transportation secretary realized the need to update the braking systems on these trains. put in place new regulations. Trump rolls back the train braking rule meant to keep these sort of tragedies from occurring. And he did so just 1 month after a $1 million donation from the train industry. So after $8 million donation, a month later, Trump rolls back these new regulations designed to, prevent derailments and crashes, train crashes, especially of trains carrying hazardous materials near communities. But it's also interesting, and we have to realize that the train workers recently tried to strike. And one of the things they wanted is better regulations, more maintenance of the train systems. By the way, I talked to somebody who works in the rail industry today, and boy, was that was very revealing, because what I learned today is, did you know that when a train leaves getting ready to leave from its destination, it pulls in somewhere and is loading cargo in all these cargo, trains behind the train. So they get loaded up, and then a rail worker has to inspect each car that the train is pulling. But according to current regulations and the rail lines, the rail worker has 90 seconds to inspect the rail car. So could this tragedy have been avoided? Apparently, there was some problem with the axle on one of these cars, which was carrying these noxious chemicals. And apparently, a rail worker was only given 90 seconds to approve that train leaving for that car. They have to go down the train and they get 90 seconds to inspect each car. This was one of the things that the rail workers were striking over. And of course, they wanted higher pay. But the rail industry, it's interesting that the railroads are not owned by individuals. They're corporations. But what's even more interesting is who really owns the rail companies. And the biggest owners, B. Baker pointed this out in our Discord. By the way, join our Discord for extra information like this. The owners of stock of the railroad involved in this tragic accident, the biggest owners of stock in that company are Chase Bank, BlackRock, and Goldman Sachs. All those banks and investment funds have a considerable amount of pull and probably may have something to do with the lack of media coverage of this event. So I did find a few people on alternative media that are covering this and doing a good job. And boy, this story gets worse and worse and worse. So what we're up to is February 3rd, the train crashes, huge fire. There's chemicals burning. 3 days later, they decide to essentially blow up what remains of the fire, purposefully releasing between 100,000 and 1 million gallons of noxious chemicals were burned right into the atmosphere. I mean, I don't understand, where do they think that those chemicals are going to go? And by the way, this is quite personal to me because this tragic event happened on the Ohio-Pennsylvania border. Now, it's pretty far from me. It's on the whole other end of Pennsylvania, right? I'm on the eastern side. This is all the way at the other end. But still, by the way, those clouds of noxious chemicals will be reaching my home in the next several days. And I just want to mention, for anyone within the sound of my voice that feel they may be affected by the chemicals or the acid rain or any of these environmental effects, you can get an air quality monitor on Amazon for $50. I've ordered one just to be safe. Better safe than sorry. And I'm not sure what else to suggest because I'm not an expert, but you do want to have a monitor so that you're aware if there are potentially deadly chemicals in the air you're breathing outside your home, right? So I try to make all these phone calls and I'm left with much more questions than answers because I want to know who authorized the release, who authorized burning between 100,000 and 1,000,000 gallons of this very dangerous cancer-causing agents, chemicals, right? It's important to note that this train which crashed was not equipped with electronically controlled pneumatic brakes, which a former Federal Railroad Administration official claimed would have mitigated the severity of the accident. In 2017, Norfolk Southern successfully lobbied the Trump administration to repeal the regulations requiring the use of such brakes on trains carrying hazardous materials. And how did they lobby? Lobby is a nice word for bribe. They gave the Republican Party $8 million, and suddenly Trump repeals the regulations requiring the use of the exact brakes which probably would have prevented this environmental disaster and huge tragedy. So this is a failure on multiple levels, but it's not just Trump who failed. When the rail workers were striking, President Biden ordered them back to work, said, you can't strike. You have to go back to work because we've already got supply shortages or whatever reason he gave. And again, one of the things that the rail workers wanted was greater safety and better maintenance of the train's systems. The best display of how screwed up this system is that I could give is the fact that a rail worker gets 90 seconds to inspect each car. And you mean to tell me that there is a huge cargo container containing, I don't know how many gallons, maybe 10,000, 20,000 gallons of cancer-causing flammable chemicals that are absolutely and totally, completely disruptive and destructive, catastrophically destructive should they be released into the atmosphere. And we only give the rail worker 90 seconds to inspect that car to make sure it's safe to travel, who knows, 10,000 miles at high speeds. This is absolutely a failure on every level of government. And where is the EPA while local officials, by the way, do you know who decided to do that burn, to burn all those chemicals? Norfolk Southern and local officials in the area of East Palestine. They got together and made the decision to do a, quote, controlled burn. And they claim that controlled burn was successful. And it's interesting that shortly after the controlled burn, they we're gonna share this next, or you know what? First, let's do this. I have a good synopsis of some of the story, but let me put up my fair use banner here. We're gonna put up. We're gonna use fair use. This is a transformative work. We're educating the public and critiquing the videos we're sharing, and we're using this video in the spirit of fair use and for educational purposes. And it is interesting that some alternative media are covering this well, but there is largely the mainstream media is now figuring out that this is a huge story, and they're starting to catch up. It's ridiculous. Oh, let's do that one more time. I always have to do it twice. You know that. Yeah.
Number 3, Ohio derailment. This is a story that's not getting as much attention from the national media, and I am remiss in not having mentioned this previously. A derailment of a train carrying toxic chemicals in eastern Ohio, near the town of East Palestine. That's near the border with Pennsylvania, is now the subject of a federal lawsuit that's been filed. The train derailed last week, and this lawsuit wants to force Norfolk Southern to initiate health testing for residents in both Ohio and Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so suddenly, and by the way, I don't want to jump ahead, but we've got all kinds of videos. There are pets dying all around this tragic event. People's dogs, people's cats, people's birds, cockatoos, right? People's pets are dying all around this town. And I've heard reports as far away as 20 or 30 miles away from the initial blast here. People's pets are dying. There's fish dying in all the creeks and rivers. And Norfolk offered, we'll let him tell the story. So people are now suing Norfolk to try to get them to pay for people's medical expenses, as they should, because they made these decisions that led to this.
Also, undetermined damages and full insight into the nature of the chemicals that have been released into the air. The Associated Press reports the lawsuit, which was filed last Thursday by 2 Pennsylvania residents, calls for Norfolk Southern to pay for medical screenings and related care for anyone within a 30-mile radius of the derailment. About 50 cars, including 10 with hazardous chemicals, derailed on February 3rd. No one injured in the derailment, but as investigators came to the scene, they noticed a sharp rise in temperature in some of those rail cars. And so
Yeah, sharp rise in temperature. Sure, because there was noxious chemicals.
they decided to release and burn the vinyl chloride inside 5 of the tanker cars, which sent hydrogen chloride and the toxic gas phosgene into the air. Now, the official story, environmental regulators have been monitoring air and water in surrounding communities and said that so far air quality remains safe, drinking water not affected.
Yeah, and I'd like to know, if drinking water is not affected, there are something like 5 million people affected through the Ohio River. And this is where it gets crazy. They're saying drinking water is not affected, but fish and wildlife all over the area are dying. People have wells. For those who live in the city, it's very common for people who live in more rural areas that they have a well drilled, and then they have a well pump, and there's a well in the ground, a pipe that goes way down in the ground, 50 or 100 feet, to underwater reservoirs that they draw their water from. If these chemicals were released into the soil, if these chemicals were released into the air to turn to phosgene, another cancer-causing, very dangerous chemical, which is then going to come down in rain, how is it not going to affect the drinking water? But we're supposed to believe that drinking water is not affected, while there's fish dying in all the local rivers and all the local creeks. I don't think so.
Bear in mind that phosgene was used as a chemical weapon in the trenches of World War I. It was the main killer in the compound called mustard gas.
Yeah. So essentially, these geniuses at this train company, and the EPA let them, and the local mayor let them, they burned this chemical that turned it into the main component of a chemical weapon in mustard gas called phosgene that is now released all throughout the eastern seaboard now. Where is this deadly, dangerous chemical, once released in the atmosphere, going to go? It's going to seep into everything. It's going to come back down in rain. It's going to infect local water sources all over the eastern seaboard. But I should mention, I'm not an environmental expert. This is just my opinion. You are free to have yours. The chemical has to go somewhere. And this amount of chemicals released into the atmosphere, it can't be good. It can't be good for wildlife. It can't be good for humankind. It can't be good for fish. It can't be good for plants, trees, animals, pets. Pets are dying all over this area. But we're supposed to believe that they made the right call to burn this stuff and release it into the atmosphere?
And not everyone is buying what the government is selling here. New York Post reports that the owner of a dairy farm just outside the evacuation zone has said that several foxes that he keeps on his property suddenly became mortally ill, just suddenly took sick and died.
Yes, and animals as large as cattle are reported as becoming sick or dying. And people with livestock in the area, large livestock, goats and pigs and cows, are moving their livestock away from the area.
And he's not the only one. There are other scattered reports of dead animals well outside the original evacuation zone. The owner of a chicken farm in nearby North Lima said video camera footage shows her chickens perfectly fine before they started the burn. And as soon as they started the burn, the chickens slowed down and died.
Yeah, and we've got some footage of chickens and dead fish all over the area.
Adding, quote, if it can do this to chickens in one night, imagine what this is going to do to us in 20 years, end quote. We pray for those downwind of this burn.
Yeah, and where are our government officials who are supposed to protect us from environmental? Where is the EPA? What don't they have studies and data of long-term exposure to these type of cancer-causing agents? They're just supposed to release this into the soil, into the atmosphere, into the water table in a local town. And, oh, we just have to evacuate 1 mile of people living nearby. And then we can let them come back to their homes just a few days later. It's safe. And by the way, local residents are all feeling sick. Not all. I shouldn't use absolutes. I apologize. There are various reports of especially elderly going outside and instantly feeling nauseous and sick. The smell of chemicals is still deep in the air in that area and surrounding towns and areas. And this plume of noxious, dangerous carcinogens is now traveling freely in the atmosphere above this town to neighboring towns, neighboring states. This is not going to be contained in this local area. This is going to spread. And we have evidence that it is spreading now.
Topic number 2, the Super Bowl.
That's it for that story. I just wanted to make sure that we're aware that some of the locals aren't taking the side of this train company who wishes to minimize their exposure, their liability. They want to minimize their liability here. So much so, let me show you this. This is crazy. So essentially, the train company here's another point that we got to make sure that we make, because it would appear now that the train company and the government are not being entirely honest with us. Various reports that data shows additional chemicals present on derailed Ohio train. Additional chemicals were aboard the derailed train, had the potential to be deadly. Experts said there were more toxic chemicals aboard the train that derailed in Ohio than originally reported, new data shows. Were these local officials who decided to burn all of this aware that there was more chemicals on board that crashed train, more chemicals than just vinyl chloride, and that those chemicals could be just as, if not more deadly than vinyl chloride? I can't believe they just said, oh, we'll just burn it. The problem will go away if we just burn it. Another thing that I would just like to mention is that every time something like this happens, I am shocked and sort of surprised, because crickets from the climate cult nuts over a real problem. Imagine that. Where is Greta Thunberg? Where are you environmental activists? This, I truly believe, and I will admit this is my opinion and speculation, but I truly believe that this is the greatest environmental disaster in the continental United States since the Gulf spill. And crickets, nothing. No media. The media has been largely silent on these issues. And the environmental experts, where are they? Where are these climate change people? And I get it. Climate change is a problem. But you know what else is a problem? 100,000 to 1 million gallons of vinyl chloride being openly burned into the atmosphere in a residential town with the full knowledge and, I would assume, consent and blessing of the Environmental Protection Agency. This is a huge failure on the part of the EPA. How could they just let them? And now let's get into the other environmental impacts soon to come. One second. Okay, so East Palestine sits almost at the very beginning of the Ohio River Basin aquifer that flows southwest through all these states. And apparently, we can't begin to know just how bad it really is yet. So the Ohio River in Ohio, it doesn't, this is not going to just affect that little local town. East Palestine sits almost at the very beginning of the Ohio River Basin. So this is going to affect Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, Indiana, and maybe more, right? It continues on. Arizona, Missouri, Mississippi, and these other waterways also surrounding Tennessee may be affected. All these states may be affected. And we've heard what happens when this stuff gets into water systems. It is extremely, extremely dangerous. Now, the toxicity of these chemicals is causing animals to die hundreds of miles away. That's from various reports. Apparently, it's in the air, water, and soil. EPA says it's safe. 200-mile radius report. This is the cloud. It covers all of Ohio, half of Pennsylvania, and more bordering states. This is the cloud of noxious chemicals after the burn. This is how it is spread. And this is just so far. We heard about Trump. We have some images of this tragic event. And I thought I had one other data point here to share. Apparently not. Okay, so the Norfolk train, the train company offered to give a very pittance amount of money to the local residents. We talked about them trying to, absolve themselves of responsibility, and they want to minimize how much money they will have to put out to do the environmental cleanup, to, pay for people's health problems that are going to come as a result of this. One second, let me just search for this. I knew I needed that data point. It's always the one that's important, right? Yeah. Yeah, so here it is. Attorney warning East Palestine residents about $1,000 Northern Southwark payments. A Cleveland attorney is warning East Palestine residents about a $1,000 check being offered to people as an inconvenience fee from Norfolk Southern. Let me share my screen here. One second. On Friday, February 3rd, so Michael O'Shea of the Lipson O'Shea Legal Group is representing residents in a lawsuit against the railroad and is worried about the reason behind the checks. We have some clients from East Palestine area affected by train accident who are being approached by Northern Southern with $1,000 checks for an inconvenience fee. And of course, if you take that money, you have to sign away all future rights. And by the way, there's only 25,000 local residents. So is Norfolk Southern just trying to get away with paying everybody $1,000? That would mean that they essentially would get away with any liability over this situation for a measly $25,000. And by the way, this is a multi-billion-dollar company. Multi-billion-dollar company. One second. Norfolk Southern obtained by Cleveland 19. A spokesperson said people accepting money does not keep them from settlements in the future. I don't believe that. But apparently they're offering the whole town $25,000, $1,000 per person. That is absolutely amazing. So let's get into some of the proof. All right, and here we're going to talk about the environmental impact and how this may spread. We have a very data-rich presentation tonight. We're going to try to get through it all. The challenge today was what exactly to share. First, let's share this. This was great. Residents can return home after crews burned chemicals in derailed tanker cars. And this is on February 8th. So just 2 days after they did this burn, the local authorities were telling people it's safe to go home. Evacuated residents can safely return. And I want you to bear this in mind after I show you the images of all the dead animals in the area. Evacuated residents can safely return to the Ohio village where crews burned toxic chemicals after a train derailed 5 days ago near the Pennsylvania state line. East Palestine Fire Chief Keith Drabeck said Wednesday. Authorities in East Palestine had warned that burning vinyl chloride that was in 5 of the derailed tanker cars would send hydrogen chloride and toxic gas phosphine into the air. We heard about that. The main component of mustard gas, the chemical weapon. Yeah, geniuses over there. They said Wednesday subsequent air monitoring hadn't detected dangerous levels inside or outside the mile radius evacuation zone. And again, they only evacuated 1 mile square residents from the local area. Daybreak said that air and water samples taken Tuesday from the evacuation area show it's now safe. This is safe? It's safe to be there? I don't think so. And the evacuation order was lifted. He thanks state and federal officials and agencies that helped with the emergency response over the past few days. James Justice of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency said the around-the-clock air monitoring has showed normal, unconcerning levels. Hundreds of data points from that show that the air quality in the town is safe. If the air quality in the town is safe, then I'd like to know why everybody's pets are dying in that town. Why are chickens dying? Why are fish all over the area dying in the local rivers and creeks? Why are chickens dying? Why are people moving their livestock that are getting sick? He reiterated there was a robust air monitoring system in place, and data from that showed nothing at a level that would be cause for health concern. Sorry, I just don't believe that this is safe. I don't believe it's safe. Now let's share some information about how this may spread. Okay, so toxic chemicals from a train derailment in Ohio may spread 700 miles or more through the Ohio River to neighboring states, officials in Indiana revealed today. This controlled burn released toxic substances such as butyl acetate to be released into the atmosphere. There's another chemical. You need a chemical degree to understand all the chemicals that are being released into the environment and atmosphere due to these geniuses deciding to do this, quote, controlled burn, unquote. An evacuation order was issued for everyone within a mile radius, but this was recalled last week. Photos and videos show giant clouds over the area of the toxic substances being released. With chemicals leaching into the river, authorities in other states are concerned that they could spread much further, potentially contaminating the water along the way. In Indiana, the Evansville Water and Sewer Utility is monitoring their water intake in Indiana, officials revealed on Monday. There was a slim chance that we will detect contamination from this spill at our site because our structure is around 700 river miles away from the spill. Well, it's going to take some time for it to travel that far, in my opinion. So they said in a statement by local media. However, EWSU is continuously testing and staying vigilant of the river conditions in the event of detection close to us. So right where this whole environmental disaster happened is the Ohio River, which goes into Indiana, and that's where this water company gets their water from for their customers. This is extremely dangerous. West Virginia also expressed concerns about possible contamination from the disaster. Last Wednesday, West Virginia Governor Jim Justice confirms that Weirton, a town in northern Panhandle close to East Palestine, said that officials had moved to a second source of water. So they've had to stop using their normal water source because it may be contaminated. But that was done in an abundance of caution to keep the community safe. On Sunday, West Virginia American Water said it was enhancing their water treatment process following the spill of chemicals in the East Ohio River, as well as installing a second water intake in the Guadadate River for backup purposes. So we've got neighboring states all switching to other water sources because of fears of contamination of the Ohio River. This is not good news all around. But let's get to my Twitter feed. By the way, the best way to keep up with the show here really is to follow me on Twitter. It's at Stephen Cambion, just my name, at Stephen Cambion. And here I share many things that we share on the show. So if you would like to see those materials in more detail. And also, the first thing we're going to talk about is journalists threatened to get arrested by reporting things going on in Ohio. Now, there have been various reports, and in fairness, I have heard people say that journalists, plural, are being arrested for reporting. That's not entirely accurate. One journalist was arrested during a press conference, and here's where it gets interesting. Apparently, they told this journalist to shut up and be quiet while the governor was talking. But he was in the back of the room at the press conference reporting, I believe, live while the press conference was taking place. We have all seen reporters at the back of the room reporting or, connecting, telling the newscaster at home what's going on in the press conference at the back of a press conference while someone was talking. We've all seen this. Very common occurrence. But apparently, National Guard members and local police didn't like this reporter doing that. So they intimidated him. I believe they physically assaulted him. It looks like it to me. But again, I'm not a legal expert. This is all just my opinion. And I strongly, strongly believe in a journalist's right to do two things: ask questions or listen and report. That's all this gentleman was doing. He was arrested, thrown on the ground. Just to be clear, there are various reports that there's a cover up because journalists are getting arrested. To my knowledge and research, there has just been this one person arrested. And apparently even the Pentagon and the federal government have come out strongly against what happened to this reporter. So I believe the charges will eventually be dropped. But still, let's be clear. This guy was just doing his job, reporting on what was going on here. He was arrested. He spent, I believe somebody said, 7 hours in jail before he was released on bail. This should not. Are we living in the Soviet Union? Is this communist China? You're going to arrest a reporter for reporting at a news conference. He is at a press briefing and he is doing his job. And, this is what happened to him.
I am allowed to be here. And you were told to shut it down, you continued on. Now.
So they're trying to throw him out of the press conference.
Do you want to get in jail for criminal trespass? Do you understand how quickly our lawyers will get me out? I don't care. Sorry, can we? I don't care.
Now, I don't know if you caught that, but he said, you know how quickly our lawyers will get me out? I don't think it's ever a good idea to say something like that to police. It sure didn't help to de-escalate the situation, but still, before that, he's saying, I have a right to be here. I fully support his right as a journalist to be there. He's doing his job, trying to report on what's going on there. They're throwing him out of a press conference.
Out the door. Out the door. By other media right here. I'm going to listen. I don't care. You're going to walk out the door. I'm going to listen. You're going to walk out the door. Come on out, sir. You're going to walk out the door, or you're going to jail. Do not touch me. Sir, can we talk outside, please? I'm trying to listen. Outside, please. And he escalated with me. I am doing my job.
And by the way, a National Guards person pushed him and put his hands on this person. So that's very problematic for local officials. And this journalist certainly has a lawsuit for violation of his constitutional rights, really.
This covered by the First Amendment. Excuse me, sir. I'm the building supervisor here. Please leave. There you have it. You're going to stand outside. Or you're going to jail. Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We have National Guard, local police, and local officials. They even got the building supervisor to say he wasn't allowed in the building. That's how they could say this is criminal trespass. Terrible what they're doing to this guy. Welcome to communist China. You woke up in Russia today. This is just a journalist doing his job. They have to get 6 people to tackle him and cuff him and drag him out like a criminal. And by the way, he's a reporter with News Nation.
Because you can't talk to people about doing their jobs.
Oh my God, I cannot believe this. This is horrible.
Yeah, this is horrible.
This is what it's like to be a black reporter.
Evan, I'm so sorry. Evan, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Sia.
Pull over, sir. Just get up on your butt.
Can you please loosen this?
We will, when you stand up.
That was a little tight.
And I did want to mention that, you know, I'm not a law enforcement officer, but I do know this. A law enforcement officer has within his discretion the ability to make decisions. These law enforcement officers had 2 decisions. They could either try to de-escalate the situation and allow this journalist his constitutional First Amendment rights. What was he? It's a public press hearing, right? And he is a reporter reporting on what's being said at the public press hearing. So therefore he has to be there to hear it, to listen. They try to throw him out. And again, this is within the discretion of the police officers. They were perfectly within their rights to tell him, you can stay, but you have to be quiet or something while the governor's talking. They could have de-escalated this situation. And again, I'm a big supporter of the police, but these guys are totally wrong in this situation. They should have de-escalated this situation. They should have allowed him to do his job. They should have found another solution other than to tackle him, cuff him, and arrest him like a common criminal, right? This is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Evan, I'm sorry. Oh my God.
Luckily, there was people there with cameras, right? So that's the good news, that it was caught on camera. And by the way, some of the phone calls I made was to that town's local police, and I asked for comment on that situation. They had no comment. And yeah, so I have a plethora. I don't get to use that word very often. I have a great deal. Yeah. And by the way, Northern Southern, the rail giant, whose train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, they offered to cut the town a check for $25,000. And I was wrong. It's not 25,000 people who live there. It's only 5,000 people who live there. Yeah. So they try to get off cheap. And now we have some footage of the local wildlife dying, which we will share as well. This is fish and animals cannot evacuate, destined to die a horrible death. And oh, I'm sorry, I have to do this one muted because there's copyrighted music. But this is just showing the fish dead in the creek. He's going to get down there and you'll see it a little up close. It's hard to make it out, but there's dead fish all over this creek or little stream. And the person is pointing out the dead fish. he goes down, and we'll get to see a close-up view. All the fish in this local stream dead, all of them. But again, hey, it's safe to return to your homes, right? It's totally safe here. And this is February 12th, just a couple days ago. And since then, what are they doing? They're removing the dead fish from the local streams. That is just ridiculous to me. So that, what are they going to do? Just remove all the dead fish from the streams and just pretend that the fish aren't dead? This is a real problem. Now we have another local resident whose chickens all died right after the, quote, controlled burn. Let's bring you that.
This is what I found. Amanda Brashear was going to feed her 5 hens and rooster this morning when she discovered them all lifeless, practically in the same position, with no signs of a predator entering their enclosure.
I'm beyond upset and quite panicked because they may be just chickens, but they're family.
Brashear says her chickens were alive and well yesterday. She believes the smell following the detonation of the train carrying chemicals that derailed in East Palestine is to blame for her birds' sudden death.
My video camera footage.
And by the way, this is just, I would love to, but it would take me many hours. There are a lot of local residents reporting the death of either livestock, chickens, their dogs, their cats, dying.
It shows my chickens were perfectly fine before they started this burn. And as soon as they started the burn, my chickens slowed down and they died. If it can do this to chickens in one night, imagine what it's going to do to us in 20 years.
That's where it gets scary. So are local officials just saying it's perfectly okay to live there? And I believe that they're going to have to do an awful lot of long-term studies here to get to the bottom of what the long-term health effects are likely to be for residents that decide to stay living in that area. Okay, also, I wanted to mention that so far, 3 states are reporting dangerous hazardous chemical spills from train derailments. And we have a graphic to share with you about that. But for the purposes of tonight, to be quite honest with you, the first one in Ohio has the most data available and most information. But yes, there are 3. Actually, I'm told there might be another one. So there may be up to 4 train derailments with hazardous chemical spills from train derailments across the continental United States currently. That should be a cause of concern for all of us, because if it can happen in Ohio and Texas and South Carolina, that essentially means it can happen anywhere. And I have more footage of dying aquatic animals. This is in the local area as well. And remember, where is the EPA? They're saying it's safe. Yeah, and by the way, I called that number and it's a voicemail, and no one called me back. Very, very troubling. And this is being reported pretty widely, the death of local wildlife. Very troubling, and more troubling that the local officials are essentially saying it's safe. Everything's safe. The water wells are safe. The water sources are safe. The air quality is safe. If everything is so safe, I don't understand all these animals dying in the local area. And here we have a local news report to share with you as well.
And groundwater are safe. However,
yeah, and let's back that up. Local officials are saying that the air and the groundwater is safe.
At the area, well and groundwater are safe. However, after this couple saw dead fish in this creek that you're looking at, they're deciding to not take any chances.
Oh, there was hundreds.
Russell Murphy is referring to the fish now belly up in Leslie Run. He and his wife noticed them last night, barely 48 hours after the fiery derailment 5 miles away.
This is huge, huge environmental effects.
That's now one of many concerns the EPA now faces.
The impact of the fish, yes, there was a impact of those. However, the levels as we have seen it are protective to groundwater. We are aware there are some wells along that for residential wells.
I don't understand how all these fish could be dying, meaning that the local waterways are infected. And I mean, again, I'm no expert, but if the local streams, rivers, and creeks are all infected with this chemical that are killing fish, how could that not be affecting the local well water or the local water supplies that is being piped into people's homes for drinking water? It certainly would, at least to me, seem to be logical that they have to be incredibly vigilant, right? And here we go. They're fishing the dead fish out of the creeks.
Environmental cleanup crews were at and actually in that water today. So are these booms, which are used to catch and stop anything that shouldn't be flowing here or into water wells, which Murphy uses for just about everything. And
yeah, so this guy uses a well, and he's concerned about his animals being fed water from that well, and he should be. Absolutely insane that this is happening. It feels like we're living in a third world country. You expect this kind of you really expect this kind of stuff in a third world country, but we don't expect it in the United States of America. We think that we have a system to protect people, and I'm going to show you some more footage from the local area of dead and dying wildlife. And thank God for some nosy people. This person saw what was going on and stopped and went and sort of checked in on the situation. And this is an environmental company truck. I don't understand how local officials are telling everybody it's safe. Look at all these trucks out, checking out all these dead fish, fishing them out of the local waterways. Apparently, they're trying to remove them, according to this video. This is extremely troubling, and I wonder, do these people even care about the local health of the locals, right? People live here. People work here. People, you know, have water wells here.
You guys scooping out all the dead ones?
Yeah, she said, are you guys scooping out all the dead ones? And this gentleman in a environmental suit and gear says we're trying to. Why are they just scooping all the dead fish out of the water? And what are they doing with those dead fish? Are forensic testing taking place? Are toxicology reports being generated from all these dead fish? Where is the EPA? They are scooping dead fish out of the local waterways.
Well.
Yeah. So thanks to a couple of local residents, we know more about this. And here's the booms again, trying to prevent further contamination of the local waterways. Extremely troubling. Where is the EPA? what is going on in the United States of America? This is just absolutely sickening to me. All right, so we are going to check in. We haven't. I apologize if. Please don't think that I was neglecting the live chat, especially not on a holiday like Valentine's Day. So let me check in with the. We will read some super chats, and oh, good, I didn't miss many. I always hate it when I feel like I missed, like, a lot of them. But it looks like we're pretty caught up. So we want to thank Brian Razowitz for a kind and generous 1999 super chat. No message, but a wonderful support of the show. For those unaware, we are a viewer-supported show, and we pull no punches, and we speak truth to power. I tried to speak truth to power, but unfortunately, no one would return my call, either from the Norfolk Southern Train Company, the Environmental Protection Agency, the local mayor's office, the local police office, the local fire chief. No one will return our calls. I really did try. We mentioned we made at least 45, I think it was 47, I don't know, 45 phone calls. I have it in notes. I keep logs of calls because sometimes in order to get answers, it's helpful to be able to tell them, I called on this day at this time, you said call me back, you didn't. I called on this day at this time, you said call me back, you didn't. Incredible. No one wants to answer any questions about this. And while I would agree sometimes that absence of evidence is not evidence, it's extremely suspicious to me. I have some very specific questions, and one of those questions is for the train company. I want to know exactly how many gallons of these dangerous chemicals were released, what were the chemicals, and what quantity were on board that train. They would not answer the question. They would not return the call. They would issue no comments on the record. So what we have here is a complete and total lack of responsibility being displayed by the train company, by the local police department, by the local fire department, and by the Environmental Protection Agency and our transportation secretary. Let's not forget, this is his job. This is his responsibility, and he has a taxpayer-funded paycheck. So when a taxpayer or anyone, journalist or otherwise, calls and has very specific, easy-to-answer questions, I believe that they should be required to answer those questions. But it would appear that they can just ignore everyone. And thanks, Collie Armstrong, for a kind and generous $2 super chat. And DJ D's as well. Longtime show supporters. And DJ D's is a channel member. You can join our members only and get some extra goodies. Thank you, DJ D's, for your kindness, your generosity, and your support of the show. We want to thank all of you for your kindness, generosity, and support, and for helping us to praise the cash.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
Oh, it's wonderful. It is Valentine's Day, and we are praising the cash. Thank you all for your kindness, generosity, and support. Oh, interesting. Thank you, James Pepper. I should have messaged you. I should have had you come on. James Pepper is sort of an environmental watchdog, and he goes after people who try to cover these things up. It's good to see you in the live chat. The hazard ranking system, I will put a link into your Twitter page. This gives distances from toxic sites and the responsibilities for detection. Well, I think that we could say that this is a large-scale systematic failure on many, many fronts, right? All right, we'll take some comments and questions from the live chat. Hans Driscoll says, Evolutionary Arts YouTube channel has a video of the train on fire in a town away from when it is derailed. Yeah, this is the great part apparently they weren't too far from the end destination, and they knew that, allegedly, knew that there were some problems, like the axles were overheating on these cargo cars carrying extremely hazardous cancer-causing chemicals, and they decided to just keep going until they got to their destination. Didn't quite make it. Huge explosion, huge environmental disaster. Possible cyber attack. Well, I don't think that a cyber attack had much to do with this situation. Yes, a good idea, Louise, New York City. And by the way, good to see you. The people of Flint, Michigan are nodding in agreement, I would think. Truth Seekers, not the first time this type of thing has happened. I don't forget this stuff. And I agree with you. And do you remember, Louise, when the Flint water situation started? The EPA, the local officials, everybody told all the local residents that the water was safe, right? It took people dying, and I believe children dying and getting extremely sick, terminally sick, before they started to do something. And by the way, those people in Flint, Michigan still don't have safe, clean drinking water. It's been years and years and years. Jacob of Ephraim is here and says 33,000 gallons of vinyl hydrochloride was spilled from those containers. When burned, it turns into hydrochloric acid. Acid rain, anyone? 33,000 died in Turkey. See the coincidences. 33 and a third, anyone? Yeah, I'm only a little bit into numerology, but that is very strange. And in fact, I just did a music video that I wasn't aware, but somebody said it was 3 minutes and 33 seconds, the music video. But it turns out it was 3 minutes and 32 seconds. And no, I didn't do that intentionally. Just an interesting coincidence, right? I don't know what this is about. Jim Bud Royal, Cambian, you Nazi, stop picking on Asians and Russians. You must have missed last night's show, because I actually said many things in support of Russia, actually. In fact, I believe that this Ukrainian war was provoked. That's my personal opinion, and I'm entitled to it. If you know the full history of the conflict, and by the way, I don't condone anybody invading anything, and I hate war, but those Russians think they're doing the right thing to defend their country and defend their future. Some days I want to get down on transport like the booty shoot, like a Roman without a cloak. Okay, Hank, if you say so. Romulan powered up for the Republic. I missed something from Spooky. Yeah, so comments or questions for me, please put them in all capital letters. Al Warrior, a kind and generous $2 super chat, and is a channel member. Thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support in helping us to praise the cash.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your kindness, your generosity, and your support. Wreaking Havoc says, can't listen to anyone with their shirt off in their thumbnail. I don't, I must be missing something. See, I wasn't paying attention. All right, so comments or questions for me, please put them in all capital letters. Do you think aliens are demons? For those unaware, I grew up Catholic. I was an altar boy and later an acolyte, which is sort of like a grown-up altar boy. I almost became a priest. I spent time in the seminary. I'm very interested in demons, demonology, exorcisms. In fact, I interviewed several different exorcists, and we'll be doing some future shows about demons, demonology, angels, and angelology. Do I believe that aliens are demons? Well, I believe that's just as plausible a possible explanation as is the theory that they are from aliens from other star systems. And it would explain a lot. M. Stone, do you have any questions or comments for the chat. Maybe. Yeah. And I would ask everybody. I heard a really nice YouTuber that I've been watching. This girl, oh God, her name is going to escape me now. Christina Randall. She covers true crime. And at the beginning of every one of her videos, she says, please do not express any hate in the grocery store, in your daily life, or in the live chat, please. And so I'm going to start doing something like that. It's okay to disagree, but let's please be kind to each other, both in the live chat and in the comments. I've noticed that the comments are getting, they're getting pretty heated sometime, right? So if you're just joining us, we are covering this Ohio train derailment. And boy, I think that some heads better roll over this. There are people responsible for this tragedy. And I hope that people are taking notes as far as who made these decisions leading to this, quote, controlled burn, unquote. I hope that people at the EPA will be held responsible for allowing this to take place, for allowing this to happen. I hope that Pete Buttigieg and people at the Department of Transportation are going to be held responsible for not, I don't know, watchdogging or making sure that people that are transporting extremely cancer-causing, extremely hazardous chemicals aren't taking all the precautions that they should. This is absolutely, positively ridiculous that this happens, right? Yeah, and I don't, we've got some new people in the live chat. So some of these new people are not aware of the rules here. And the rules here are very simple. We have a free speech zone. Feel free to agree with each other, disagree with each other, but please do so respectfully. We don't want anybody to feel unwelcome here in our live chat. Everybody's welcome from all sides of the, yeah, that's interesting. Jacob of Ephraim says, why didn't OSHA interview before the burn? I just don't understand that people gave anybody in authority would say, let's just burn it all. That'll get rid of it. But again, I'm not an environmental expert or a fireman or anything like that. So I don't know what the usual policy about dealing with a situation like this is. I mean, if I was in charge, I probably, and having, I don't know that they had these resources, but I probably would have ordered that the fire be put out at any cost, get 100 fire engines around it, dousing it with water, and then the entire site should have been contained, dug up, and dealt with. Every inch of it should have been, they should have put out the fire, and then after the fire, clean up everything from the fire, including the water put on the fire to put it out. All the soil has to be dug up because it's all contaminated, 30 feet down, whatever you have to do, and then contained. That certainly, I believe, would have been a more favorable outcome than what happened, which is that they burned hundreds of thousands of gallons of noxious, cancer-causing chemicals, right? M. Stone says, I apologize, Stephen. I'm feeling all right. Well, it's about time somebody asked me if I had any comments or questions for the live chat. That's never happened before. It's perfectly acceptable, right? James Pepper is here and says, my grocery store plays the Sex Pistols and the Dead Kennedys and the Ramones for music. Well, that's interesting. Yeah. What's old is new again, I guess. Heated water on the wood stove. Luna Sparkles is here. Is that you with the guitar? I want to see a better picture of that. But that's a great avatar. Welcome, Luna Sparkles 1. Good to see you. Do you play guitar, or is that just sometimes people just pick up a guitar for a picture, right? A good question. Hansy Hans Driscoll says, are you going to drive there and interview residents? Well, I thought about it, but it is like a 6-hour drive, believe it or not. They're all the way on the other end of the state, maybe 7-hour drive. And I'm a little concerned that my 10-year-old car with 100,000 miles on it is not the best vehicle to take a long road trip like that. But I'm still considering doing that. Yes. check out the new video of the East Palestine arrest of the reporter. I will do that, right? You have to sue OSHA to get them involved. M. Stone says some of this seems like a distraction. And thank you, Mike Kane. I will check in once. Sometimes someone on Twitter will share something right during the live show that's important, and we try to include those bits. That's why it's important to follow me on Twitter. It's at Stephen Cambian. So 1 second here. Let me see. I've got James Pepper, EPA distance regulations from toxic waste sites. The site is long and complicated, shortened for this article. Okay. Okay, so Mike Kane says, I worked on material safety data sheets in my past life. These sheets are reference for emergency workers to explain the hazards of the material they're encountering. It's shocking the train engineer didn't have a set to show the first responders. They would have handled it differently. Well, there we go, Mike Kane. There's another failure here. So there should be a train cargo manifest. There should be paperwork that says this is the exact cargo on the train in the event of an emergency. So you're right. So the local authorities, local to wherever a derailment or an explosion happens, know exactly what they're dealing with. For all we know, all those firefighters and everybody else that had to deal with this are going to get cancer in the next year because they sucked in all these noxious chemicals from a chemical fire of extremely cancer-causing, extremely dangerous chemicals. They should have known what they were dealing with. Yeah, I agree with you. Brandy Phillips says, it's hard to imagine setting it on fire was the safest course of action. I agree with you. Some cars were already spilled. The unspilled one, they punched a hole in them and then they burned it off. I guess it cost too much money for them to transfer the contents. Scumbags, says Torvik. I agree with you. I don't care what it costs. If you're going to kill all that local wildlife, if you're going to contaminate water, cause people cancer for 100 years to come to save a couple of dollars, then you're a scumbag. You're an absolute scumbag if you choose to do that. Al Warrior says maybe a distraction before World War III. I sound like Alex Jones now. You're right. There's got to be agents. Lauren Henson is correct. This is why I'm not a firefighter. Water can just make the burning chemical spread. You may be correct, but there are, I'm sure there are chemical agents that, I'm sure there are things that firefighters can use to put a chemical fire out. I'm sure that they have things specific to that, like just like there's, certain chemicals in fire extinguishers to deal directly with electrical fires, right? And by the way, Lauren Henson, my wife got me fire blankets because I don't know what it is. We've never had an electric stove. I catch things on fire here at our new house. And I don't know how I keep doing it, but I do. I put a towel down on the stove and I didn't realize that I didn't turn off the other burner. So the towel caught on fire and then I threw it onto the other counter and then the counter caught on fire. So my wife got me fire blankets. That's very nice of her. And we do have fire extinguishers and things, but those fire blankets may come in handy the next time I have a fire emergency, right? Mysterious Oklahoma is here. Welcome, and says, perhaps these train wrecks are pretext. Remember, it wasn't long ago a rail strike was imminent. Maybe now with these accidents, they'll shut down all railways for a nationwide system check. I agree. They probably should. Hazardous chemicals often allowed to burn and or set fire to prevent groundwater polluted. Never heard that, but maybe, yeah. Louise, New York City says, the public seem to still think that the government still has our best interests as number one. It ain't like that anymore. Hasn't been for years. We are traveling backwards fast. I 100% agree with you. I 100% agree with you. Luna Sparkles, yes, I'm a musician. Did you know that we used to have musical guests. Every show I would play music from a music artist. I'm a musician myself, so I like to try to help my fellow musicians. So if you have some music that we can share on the show and use it to promote you, I would be happy to do that. Yeah, I see you got a YouTube channel. I'll check it out after the show. Oh, look at that. But I saw that you have Corn and Limp Bizkit in your playlist, so maybe not. No, I'm just kidding you. Not a fan of those two, right? But you play guitar. That's interesting. I'll check out your YouTube channel. It's Luna Sparkles, Lunar, Lunar Sparkles 1 for anybody who would like to check out her YouTube channel. And I will do so after the show. Okay, so comments or questions for me, please put them in all capital letters. It helps me know that that's a comment you want me to share and not just part of the conversation you're having with friends. Key idea I learned from a railroad. This is partly a result of a train not being classified as hazmat train. It's part of the precision railroading program. Interesting. Yeah. And heads should roll for that not being classified properly. Wreaking Havoc says, you hear anything on the Texas train derailment recently? No, I'm still researching the other derailments, but I thought for tonight we will give an introduction to what happened in Ohio. We are going to be doing a follow-up story because, to be quite honest with you, these people that won't call me back have pissed me off. And what happens when that happens is I call them more. And then I start really hammering them. Like, I called you on this date, this date, this date, this date. I want an email address. I send them emails with return receipt requested. I have even sent people questions wreaking havoc by certified snail mail where they had to sign for the thing I sent them with the questions. I do not like to be ignored, right? You know how everybody wreaking havoc has something that irks them? As a reporter or a show host, when I call in good faith, and I'm not being nasty to these people or anything, I'm always very polite and very professional. I do make it my policy to do that. I call very nice, very polite, and I ask questions. But when I get completely and totally ignored for 2 days straight, that pisses me off. So then I start getting very aggressive. Then I start recording the calls, and we may do a whole show of me on the phone with all of these people ignoring this situation, just to show the public that this bunch of people who are in charge of this situation don't want to answer very basic questions. The fact that the train company can't or won't answer a very simple question: how many hundreds of thousands of gallons of cancer-causing chemicals was on that train that you people burnt? You know, and we're going to do a follow-up. So we'll be doing a follow-up. I'll be on the phone with these people for the next week. But this time I'm going to record it. Just one of my guitars. I prefer bass. Used to be into keyboards. That's what I'm into. You can see my latest music video, Lunar Sparkles, is in the videos section here. It's called Demons. Yeah, I've been sort of a synth, MIDI music guy my whole life. For sometimes I was in rock bands, but I was terrible as a guitar player, so I just sang in the rock bands. Spooky, reminding everybody to smash the like button. Yeah, that's a good thing to do. It really does help. It's not always about just throwing money at us. And by the way, I have to do that. I have to remember to remind everyone that we're a viewer-supported show. And we have Ian who can tell you how you can help out with us. When I come back, we'll take more comments and questions. The show is not over. Do not leave yet. It's a very, very quick bumper. We'll be right back, friends.
Truthseekers is a viewer-supported show. Wonderful people like you who enjoy this show send pledges in the form of super chats, super stickers, super thanks, PayPal, or Cash App. Instructions for how to help are in the description. You can also join our Patreon, and for as little as $1 a month you can get extra content. Patreon supporters get a backstage pass, early access to all our production videos before they are distributed publicly, Stephen Campion's music, private writings, a monthly show journal, and more. You can also become a YouTube channel member for $5 a month. A YouTube membership includes all of the Patreon benefits, plus a special members badge, priority reply to video comments, and the live chat, plus a monthly members only video. We thank you all, kind and generous benefactors, for supporting Truth Seekers. Thank you for your generosity and support. Thanks for being here. This is Truth Seekers with your host, Stephen Campion. Please rate, like, and comment on our videos or podcasts. If you are listening to an audio podcast, please rate us 5 stars to help us rise in the search rankings. If you are watching on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. If you're listening to an audio podcast, we love and appreciate you listeners, but you are missing the live tapings. All our shows are recorded live with video feed. We'd love you to come be a part of our live broadcasts and tapings for the podcast. Head on over to YouTube, click the search tool, the little magnifying glass, put Truth Seekers, one word in the search bar, and hit enter. You'll see a strange and mysterious guy with sunglasses. That means you found the channel. Go there, smash the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to receive up-to-date info on our YouTube channel. We welcome you to be a part of our live taping and our chat room during the live broadcasts. Seek the truth. Speak the truth. This is Truth Seekers. Truth Seekers.
Okay, we are back, and given that it is Valentine's Day, we will be wrapping things up soon. I had a little bit of Valentine festivities, but we didn't get to the good stuff yet, if you know what I mean. And I want to also, yeah, and I hope that you were all having a great Valentine's Day. I sure did. My wife gave me some Star Wars shirts, which I love. I always love new Star Wars shirts because I wear them until they fall off of me or my wife throws them out. I wear Star Wars shirts almost every day. So I got some new Star Wars shirts and some other cool stuff, including, I don't know how she got it, but she got a whole lobster. So, not that I'm going to eat it today. We had a Chinese food feast, which was a little disappointing. The one thing I miss since moving out of the city is I miss the Chinese food in Philadelphia and the pizza. The pizza here is all right, and the Chinese food is so far, in my experience, horrible. I think we've tried four places, and it's a shame because we found one place where the food was a little bit better than the other places, but then the lady ripped me off and then argued with me. Like, I never went back. Like, I let her keep the money. I just didn't, it was very uncomfortable because I knew that she had charged me way too much money, and I tried to explain it to her. I showed her menu, and she kept saying, prices change, prices change. So I'm like, okay, so you bait and switched me? And it wasn't a small amount of money. It was like $15 more than it should have been, So we never went back. We tried a new place today. It was just okay. And by the way, I cook Chinese food, including lo mein and fried rice, and have a big wok. And so maybe I'm a Chinese food snob. I don't know. But if I can make it better than them, I don't think it's worth paying for. Right? If I can make a better fried rice than the local Chinese food place, and I believe I can and do, I'm not excited about Chinese takeout anymore. The places in Philly were off the hook, right? They were great, and there were so many more to choose from. Very disappointed in the Chinese food where I live now, but we're going to keep trying places until we find a good one. There's got to be a good one here. Louise is says Valentine can kiss my A. I'm sorry that you feel that way, right? I don't know. I had a good one. I hung out with my wife. We had a wonderful meal, and the kids gave my wife flowers, and so did I. I gave my wife a gift of I don't even know what you would call it. I gave her like a light up rose, I think. Is that what you would call it? Yeah, that's what I would call it. And you know, she likes flowers and cards. She's real big on cards. Men, do not underestimate the power of cards. You may think that a card is not important, but for some reason, some women, including my wife, they think that this is extremely important. And I guess so should you. If you think that a card's not important, try not giving one to your wife, your girlfriend, your significant other. It's important. It's very important. And I learned that one time because I just thought that it wasn't important when I first met my wife, and I didn't get a card for something. A bad idea. Always buy the card, man. Get the card. Brandy Phillips is Sweet Caroline still a regular here? Oh, thanks for reminding me. Yes, she is, but we don't see her quite as often, not at every chat. And by the way, we miss you, Sweet Caroline, and we hope that you're good. And by the way, I've been forgetting, so I'm going to check in with the PayPal. For those unaware, you can throw money at us several different ways. One of the ways that you can throw money at us is through PayPal. And always be sure, though, that you add the note. You can, if you send a PayPal, you can add a note, and we read whatever the note is. You can send us anything, and we read it on air. We thank each and every one of you for your kind and generous PayPal pledges. Okay, so we have a kind and generous $10 PayPal pledge from Christine, who says, I've noticed a lot of conspiracy theories are starting surrounding the train derailment in Ohio. This is yesterday, by the way. I'm sorry, Christine, that I forgot to read the PayPals yesterday. So this is from February 13th. She says, I've noticed a lot of conspiracy theories are starting surrounding the train derailment in Ohio, and I hope you can do a show on the facts of this situation. It might be a bigger deal than the balloon story. I go by Christy on YouTube and Patreon. No call out necessary. Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate your work. Well, too late, Christine, and Christy, and we read every PayPal pledge, especially if you leave a note, and you did. And we want to thank Mike, who sent a kind and generous $10 PayPal pledge and says, good covering the toxic train. Yes, I thought this was an important story. I don't see a lot of coverage on this. And if we can use our little itty bitty voice here so that more people hear about this, and I would encourage you, it doesn't matter if you're not a local resident, call these people, start asking questions. Let's have people held accountable for this situation. I predict that this is going to be an environmental disaster that I haven't seen in a long, long time. It's going to have long-term effects. Sam Carno is here and says 27 minutes behind. Big hugs chat. Don't that to the past. Didn't realize how far behind the show I was. Praying these chemical attacks stop on the USA. My heart is with you. Well, thank you for your kindness and your support, Sam Carno, and good to see you there in the live chat. Lunar Sparkles, the Mystic Theater still for sale. I'm not quite sure what that is, but anyone want to go down that road? I'm not sure. Brad A is here and a member. Thanks for being a member. Says, I came up with my own joke for Valentine's Day. It is, Valentine's Day is the holiday where the single men want to spend money and where the married men have to spend money. Yeah, you may be right. But it's a good thing. It's a good thing. I always enjoy Valentine's Day. Me and my wife, we don't do anything. We used to, actually, before children, we used to make a big deal of it. We used to go out to dinner. We used to get a hotel room in a real nice hotel. We used to really have a lot more fun. And then kids come and it's just, you're lucky if they give you 5 minutes alone, right? I'm hoping they're in bed. That's what I'm hoping for, right? I always joke with my wife that the kids look itchy. Give them some Benadryl, right? Because that knocks them out. No, I'm kidding. Well, I do joke with my wife about that. And by the way, here's the present I got my wife. She likes roses, but always comments on the fact that roses die too quickly. So I got her this gold light up sort of rose that's a keepsake. She'll have it forever, or, until one of the kids knock it off a shelf or something. Yeah. That and flowers and a card, that's a good gift. Keep you in good graces of the missus, right? You got to stay in good graces of the missus. And I did. Oh, let me change this. Yeah, so there is sad news today that I was sad to hear, and we want to offer our condolences. John Greenwald of the Black Vault, his father passed away, and we want to express our sincere condolences to John and his family at this difficult time. He says, it is with great sadness that we have to announce the passing of my father, John Greenwald Sr. And for those unaware, his father was amazing. He was in the space industry and worked for NASA on a lot of the space programs. I tried to get an interview with him, but was unsuccessful. Sorry to hear of John's loss and his passing. He was an amazing man from what little I knew about him. He says, on Thursday evening, my dad passed away peacefully and painlessly as myself, my sister, and my mother were at his side. There are not enough tears to shed nor enough words to share to properly give my dad, our hero, a send-off. I will say that his strength, his wisdom, his love for his family, his sense of humor, his pride for his country as a United States Marine, his intelligence, his ingenuity, and above all else, his love for his wife, my mom, will live with us and be an inspiration for all the rest of our lives. For those who feel inclined, we ask in lieu of flowers, you consider supporting the Wounded Warrior Project or the Humane Society of the Desert, orphanpet.com. Two causes my father believed in strongly. For those who have clothes or other items you're in need of getting rid of, please consider your local veteran shelters. Another cause my dad strongly believed in supporting. Thank you for all your love, support, prayers, and good wishes. And so sorry to hear about the passing of his father. For those unaware, my father died when I was very young, and it was extremely difficult on myself and my family. I had to move back home and take care of my mother, who was a lifelong housewife. And the passing of my father, for me, was sort of a shock to my system, because he died very young. He was only 52, my father, when he died. And we had wasted a lot of time being angry at each other before he died. And, luckily before he died, we were able to reconcile and put that behind us. But I wasted years being pissed off at this man he always did his best. He made a lot of mistakes, but he always did his best. I never wanted for anything. He was a great father. But in retrospect, being a father myself now, you realize that, he did the best that he could. And I was never homeless. I was never hungry. He was always there. if we needed something, myself or my brother. He worked 2 jobs trying to get us those little extra things in life, like vacations or going to Great Adventure, or, you know, things that we needed. He worked 2 jobs his whole life, and consequently, he was in a bad mood a lot, which is why we had our differences. But his passing taught me that we never know, right? Like, you know, if I had known that he was going to die that young, things would have been different between us. I would have valued our time together more. My father used to do things, however, like involve me in projects that he was doing. Like, come on out to the garage, we're going to rebuild this boat. And I had zero interest in build, especially when I was a teenager. You want to go hang out with your friends or go out looking for girls. You don't want to, you know, spend 3 days in a dirty garage like painting a boat. But after he died, I remember thinking I would give anything to rebuild another beat up old boat with my dad again. So value that time that you're given with those that you care about, because you never know. Life is short, and we never know how long we are given with those that we care about. And that time is a gift. So value it. And yeah. Brandy Phillips says a good parent is one of the most important things a child can have. I worry about being a father, Brandy. Once in a while, you know, it rolls around in my head like, oh my God, I'm 2 kids' fathers. And it dawns on me that awesome responsibility, but I have a good relationship. Actually, I'm sure my wife would agree. I have a much better relationship with my 2 children than I ever had with my father. So that's progress, right? And my dad was very, very tough on us growing up. He was very demanding and difficult to live with, because he really demanded things from us. Like, we better get great grades. Like, if I brought home anything other than an A, he would be disappointed. I would get punished. He would make me hit the books. He would tell me I couldn't go out with my friends. You're not getting straight A's. You know, you got to hit the books. You don't have time to go out. You should be doing homework. You should be studying. You're not doing well in school. And I used to be like, you know, come on, things are relative. Like, the next door neighbor's kids just getting C's and they're going out. But my dad was old school. Like, he expected certain things. He was very, very demanding. But he sure taught me to be responsible and to work hard and to excel at the things that I undertook and be a man of my word. He was real big on that. And so, you know, it's unfortunate, but it was only until like years after his passing that I sort of forgave him for his shortcomings and how he was so tough on us, and realized, you know, that he meant well. You know, he had my best interest. He wasn't just being an ass. He wasn't just being nasty. He was trying to teach me things. He just was too tired from constantly working 2 and 3 jobs to try to provide for us. He wasn't real big on like talking or like, you know, explaining the reasons that he was expecting certain things, or, you know, so we butted heads a lot, and I left home very young, and, you know, it's a long story, but, you know, then I heard that I was living on my own and whatever. I hadn't talked to my family in years. And then I heard that he was in a hospital dying. Somebody contacted me. So we made amends, and you know, it is what it is, but I wish that I had all that time back that we wasted. You know, Louise, New York City, with more sad news. Elena, Ron's mod, and Anthony's mom had just died. Please give her a shout out. Yeah, shout out for Elena, Ron's mod, and Anthony's mod's mom. I'm sorry to hear that. And, you know, some of you know that I grew up Catholic, and there's a very quick, easy prayer. It's a prayer for the eternal rest. Let me. Of course, I get a WebP file. Why was that? There's a Catholic prayer for the dead, and it's very simple. It says, "Eternal rest grant unto them, O Lord, and let perpetual light shine upon them, May the souls of all of the faithful departed through the mercy of God rest in peace. And we say that prayer tonight for anybody that you may have lost. We say it for John from the Black Vault's father. May he rest in peace. And for Elena as well. And for anybody in the live chat who has lost someone. That is a wonderful prayer. I'll say it again. It's called the prayer for the eternal rest. Eternal rest grant unto them, O Lord, and let perpetual light shine upon them. May the souls of all of the faithful departed through the mercy of God rest in peace. I always say that prayer when somebody passes away. Some habits are hard to break. Even though I'm no longer really a Catholic, I still remember the prayers. And of course, Hail Mary, Our Father, and many, many others, right? And St. Anthony. Listen, I don't care if I turn into a whole different religion somewhere down the line. I will always say the prayer of St. Anthony when I lose something. And that's such a stupid prayer. I don't even think it's officially a prayer, but St. Anthony, please come down. Something is lost and cannot be found. Try that the next time you can't find something, your keys, your wallet, your phone. I'm telling you, it works. You can look for something. I could look for something for an hour and never find it. And then I say that St. Anthony prayer and I find it. That's a strange sort of Catholic bit of history, right? Louise NYC says, I have a 14-year-old who looks like she's an 18-year-old model. Had so much trouble with her. She just got kicked out of her last school, but luckily I just got her accepted into a new school. Sorry to hear about that. Louise, I am very, I'm kind of glad that I don't have daughters, because I don't think I could handle daughters and like dudes coming around and, I don't think I could handle it. I am thankful that I have two boys. I understand boys. I have friends that have girls, and like I don't understand some of the stuff they have to deal with. And my one friend's little girl, I think she's 13 now. She just got caught. She like sneaks other clothes out with her. Like she'll leave in one outfit, but put like a more revealing outfit in a backpack, and they caught her somehow. Like somebody put a video on Facebook or something of her somewhere, and she was wearing a totally different outfit. And I can't deal with any of that stuff. I can't deal with any of that stuff. Nope. Yeah, you never really stop being Catholic. Well, I sure did. I did. I consider myself non-denominational Christian now. We want to thank Banana for a kind and generous $5, who says, we all have trauma. Thank you for sharing yours tonight and being so open with us. Well, I didn't really intend to or mean to, but the death of somebody's father sort of triggered some of those memories and advice. And if I could give anybody advice, is if you're not speaking to a family member, especially somebody like a father, a sister, a mother, a brother, somebody that close, you just got to get over it and deal with it. Get over it, because you'll regret it when they pass away and you have wasted all that time. I wasted, I don't know, I think about 5 years being pissed off at my parents. And consequently, I didn't talk to my mother during that time either. And I remember when I went back, it was shocking how much they had aged in 5 years. You know what I mean? Like they really aged in that 5 years. And it was sort of a shock to the system to see my mother after only 5 years looking so much older. But I think there was a lot of stress because of my father's health issues that caused a lot of that and stuff. So, who knows? But yeah, make up with whoever you're pissed off at, if they're a family member especially. And thank you, Banana, for your kindness, generosity, and support of the show. I'm going to find the bumper here. There we go. Thanks for helping us to praise the cash.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
And yes, that is my son. And occasionally somebody says something nasty about me using my son. It's pre-recorded and I pay him. I'm teaching him the value of working for money. Recently, he learned about betting, though, and I'm afraid he's going to turn into a gambler. He won $5 on a game bet from me. And then, yeah. So hard, truth seekers. We tried everything, even got help from the police to ankle tag her. Jesus, actually worked. The NYC school board accepted that she was a straight A and could change. Seems to have worked. Good. Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad it worked out for you. Well, I'm still alcohol free, but the other one, yeah, I'm what's called California sober, lunar sparkles. And well, that's a time, something for another show. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Lunar Sparkle says, still grieving too. My mom and sister lung cancer, past 2 years. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Every time I hear somebody dying of lung cancer, I go, I got to quit smoking. I really have to. I think I'm going to try that nicotine gum because nothing else seemed to work. I quit with the patch before. I quit with vaping, but it just doesn't seem to work. Sam Carno says, you get good thumbs up, please. Only 20 odd, couldn't be bothered. Yeah, we've got a lot of you here, so be sure to hit that like button on the way out. It really does help us to rise in the search engines, right? Yeah. Do you think any of this news, trainer balloons, is to divert from the classified docs mess? Maybe, and that Epstein client list is coming out. Who knows? I do find it strange that all we heard about for the past week while this story was taking place was balloons being shot down. I find that very suspicious. And the problem is that it's difficult to decide who you believe with all of this stuff. And I agree with what I truly believe with what Louise said earlier, that the government doesn't have our best interests at heart. They haven't for a long, long time now, right? Iowa Walks. I tried to quit and made a song called Nicotine Submarine, Escape Now. And yeah, we always need music for the show, so send some to me. My email address is truthseekershow@gmail.com. Brad A. says, forgiveness is good for spiritual growth. Yeah. Would you want to carry a weight around for the rest of your life? Because that's what that is. That's what a grudge is. That's what, now, I will say there are some people you can forgive, but still want nowhere near your life, right? Like I have some people that have been in my life that I was really angry and pissed off with for a very long time. And eventually I get over it. But I still don't want them anywhere back in my life, I'm not going to welcome abusive people who have hurt me multiple times, even after being forgiven the first few times and kept doing it. I'm not going to welcome those kind of people in my life. So sometimes it's healthy to forgive, but not forget. That's what I do, right? Louise says, we moved from Queens to the Bronx. She is starting high school here in a new term. All I can say is that I trust her. She says she wants to start fresh. What more can I do? Well, I wish you the best of luck with her. And I hope it works out for her and you, right? It's tough being a parent. And I don't know, my kids are 10 and 6, so I don't really have to worry about a lot of the stuff that you parents of older kids have to. And I'm not looking forward to worrying about that stuff because I'm a worrier and an anxiety kind of person, right? Patty says it's called self-preservation. Absolutely. Sometimes you got to say, this person is not welcome anywhere near me, my life, or anything, right? And that does sound like it doesn't sound right. Like, okay, so you forgive them, but you won't talk to them or you won't hang out with them. Yeah, I forgive them, but I have no desire to see them, hang out with them, do anything with them, invite them to my house or parties that we have, family stuff. Nope. See ya. Right? When are you going to send your evidence to law enforcement in Sedona about Randy? Well, I don't know. I got to talk to a few other people before I do that, but it's on my list of things to do. Ohio EPA chief, there is a plume of chemicals moving down the Ohio River. It's near Huntington, West Virginia right now. Great. Great. DJ D says, gotta go, peeps. Thanks for another great show, Stephen. Much love to all and good night. And yes, happy Valentine's Day to everyone. We're going to bounce. I am going to wrap up the show here. And we will be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. If any of you remember that Nazi girl, oh boy, we got a juicy one for you tomorrow. Apparently, Marina Sarin got interviewed on a show, and she went full-blown crazy Nazi on the show. She was Zeke Highland and everything. And I need something a little lighter and funnier to break up the week. So we'll probably be doing that tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Troubled Minds is here. Yes, and I don't know if you know Troubled Minds, but I shared your take on the balloon thing yesterday. And I did say that you were one of the only people I think got the story right. Everybody got it so wrong. And I did. People ask me who I listen to. I listen to Troubled Minds because every time I look, Troubled Minds has something new to listen to. He's a glutton for punishment, always broadcasting something new and interesting. And so it's fair use, Troubled Minds, but I did put your link to that video you did on the balloon situation in the description of yesterday's video. That encouraged people to subscribe and check out your show. I hope you will do the same for me. And someday, Troubled Minds and me are going to have that conversation that we've been talking about for probably 2 years, or have me on his show, or he'll be on my show. Maybe Troubled Minds, I could be a guest over the weekend while I'm at the cabin, right? I could do that. So I'll message you. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. He says, clip whatever you want. You don't have to tell me that. I'm a content whore. There'll be a Troubled Mind segment on every show from now on. You just signed up, dummy. No, I wouldn't do that, but I like it when other show hosts are that open, and I feel the same way, and I believe in fair use. So you can take anything from mine as well. I always just say, just give me a link, right? Yeah, we should set it up. I could do it sometime from the cabin. Yeah, that'd be great. And you came in right at the end, Troubled Minds. So I'm going to bounce on out of here. It's Valentine's Day, and some of us want to try to get laid, right? It's a good day for it, right? Yeah. So I want to wish you all happy Valentine's Day. I want to encourage you all to join us here tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We want to thank all of you kind and generous benefactors, you Patreon supporters, you channel members, you subscribers over on Twitch, you super chatters, super thanks people, you super sticker purchasers, and PayPal pledgers. We love all of you. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us. We want to thank Spooky for the excellent graphics, Troubled Minds for stopping by and being okay with me using some of his material. I did think that he had a good take on it. If you missed the show yesterday, be sure you check it out, Balloon Mania. So that's all I got for you, friends. Until next time, my name is Stephen Cambion. Good night, and God bless all of you.